Hi everyone, Renee here with the DIY Day, here to share with you 3 tips for creating watercolor backgrounds with your Tombow dual brush pens. For this tutorial, I'll be using a sponge, kosher salt, a sheet protector, but you could also use a sandwich bag, Strathmore watercolor paper, this one is 140 pounds, 3 Tombow brush pens from the Bright collection, this one is $7.55, this one is $6.65, and this one is $4.93. I'm also using a medium stippling roller available at most craft stores. And 2 spray bottles. One is filled with 91% rubbing alcohol and the other one is with water. Let's get started. I'll be using these items in the first tutorial. With my 755 brush pen, I colored the top of the sheet protector. Then I sprayed the top of that with some water, followed by the rubbing alcohol. Next, I grabbed my watercolor paper and placed it on top of the mix. I dipped the paper a couple more times just to cover the remaining areas. Then, while the paper is still wet, sprinkle salt all over it. If you notice your paper is a little too dry, just spray some water on it before applying the salt. The reason for the salt is because it creates a really neat texture and pattern on the paper. Once the paper is dry, scrub off the salt with either your finger or a brush. Look how cool the design looks from the salt that was on the paper. Let's move on to the next tutorial. Here are the supplies I will be using. Just like in the first tutorial, I'm starting this one off by coloring the sheet protector. Next, I sprayed some water. Then, I brought out my water and lightly dampened my sponge, and began dabbing it onto the watercolor paper. Once the watercolor paper dried, I added a second coat, followed by a third. And here's the results of using a sponge with watercolor. Let's move on to the last watercolor background tutorial. These are the supplies I will be using. Just like the other 2 tutorials, this one starts off by coloring the sheet protector. And again, I'm spraying it with water. Then I'm going to spray my stippling roller with some water and roll it into the watercolor mix. Then, with medium pressure, roll it onto the watercolor paper. And once dried, I added a couple more coats. I continued decorating the paper until I was satisfied with the way it looked. I really love the design the stippling roller creates. It's so unique. Thank you for watching this tutorial on creating watercolor backgrounds with your Tombow dual brush pens. For written directions and pictures, please visit the Tombow USA blog. Link is in the description below.